Instagram famous cop Tommy Norman, who's also the recipient of the Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award from Joe Biden in 2021, has been arrested for domestic abuse against his Black queen wife. Now, I never heard of this guy before this story. I saw it on my feed and I looked him up, and he's a super WIGGA. If you listen to his voice, you'd think he was a black man who's a hardcore panderer to Negroes. So after these, domestic violence charges, guess who's defending him? So-called black people. Yes. Tommy, who has been arrested for hitting a black woman, is being defended by Negroes, while Charlie Kirk, who was simply talking about mass shootings and mentioning gang violence, which Negroes, of course, automatically, due to their guilty conscience, assuming they were talking about them, that guy gets not defended, but instead celebrated by black people because he got killed. Even though maybe you would want to think, oh, Hispanics have gangs too, and that's who Trump is mostly going after. He even labeled the Hispanic gangs in another country, the cartel, a terrorist organization. Something that he hasn't done to Negro gangs yet, which he should. But again, I highlight this to give you yet another example of the Negro mentality and basically why black people love pandering and not the truth, even when the pandering comes from self-hating WIGGA like Tommy Norman, because these WIGGA black pandering mofos usually are creeps, like the Ed Bucks of the world. Ed Buck, who was a contributor and ally of Hillary Clinton that got exposed for having sex with black men and killing two of them. And then the endless number of examples of like just creepy LGBTQ white saviors, white women who have a cuckold fetish or cucking their husband fetishes that usually pander to Negroes. Like all of these examples that I'm highlighting here exists in this story. Now, I did look up the details of the matter, and it doesn't really look like he did anything. It's just another situation of some woman hitting a man, and what he said in the midst of him trying to restrain her, he hit her on the chest. Because the way the officers described it is that he struck her on the chest with the back of his hand during an argument, which sounds like a Ric Flair chop. But more than likely, that's what happened. That bonquisha came out of her. She got rid of her white girl, Valley girl accent, and the Negro, Shamika, came out. And he had to restrain her. And so I don't think he did anything wrong in this particular situation. He didn't do anything criminally wrong. Now, morally, he's done plenty of wrong. Because, Arkansas is one of those hellhole, crime-ridden areas of the community. And the black pandering bullshit is not going to resolve anything. But that's what he does. And part of the reason why he does it is because he gets a lot of sex from black women. Because that's the only reason why he's had some criticism, mainly from the black males, is because not that they care about him hitting his chick who they would label a divestor, which she is. It's because he's been having sex with all the fine young black chicks. Apparently he shows up, he's, over the years since, his career, he shows up to these schools. He's nice with the kids, particularly the black females. And then once they come of age, he smashes. So he's not actually a pedo, maybe a bit of a groomer, But, nonetheless, this is this has been his forte. Now, all of his biological children is by a white woman. So he hasn't gone fully into the WIGGA black pandering investment yet. Maybe he will now to have this sort of arrest charge go away from the memories of the people of the community who would criticize him. But from what I've seen, especially from the sisterhood, they've been defending him. Now, I do believe he deserves defense based on the fact that more than likely he didn't actually hit this woman. He was just trying to restrain and protect himself. But again, it's just another underlying factor of why, if you're not pandering, if you're not doing some full-fledged, imitation of wanting to be a Negro, then so-called black people in general, they don't want to hear anything you have to say, especially if it's a legitimate criticism. And again, he's been rewarded with his pandering. Joe Biden awarded him in 2021. And you have to remember, in 2021, leading up to that award in 2020, you're talking about hot off the presses, BLM, George Floyd times. And he was considered a commendable whitey in that time period. And again, since this society is pretty much built around talking about how evil white people are, there are some of them that will be pathetic enough and lower themselves to building a career off of pandering to Negroes. And guess what? If you have a fetish for smashing, black female cheeks, then you get rewarded in multiple ways. Especially since no matter how much they spew about hating whitey, they still want to smash. If Charlie Kirk was pandering to black women, and every now and then he talked about gang violence, guess what? They would be rioting in the streets over his murder. Because they would want themselves some Charlie Kirk themselves. But again, I just had to talk about this story because those are the thoughts that came to my mind when I saw this story and then looked up who this dude was. And he was just a perfect opportunity to use him in this story as an opportunity to highlight, the mentality of Negroes. Because they will always fall for these panderers who are usually creeps, because a lot of his SJW pandering to the coloreds bullshit, a lot of it is based in a sex fetish. Like that's why all of the pandering shit, or that's part of the reason why this pandering shit is sick. And the people who are the willful recipients of it, it's a sex thing for them as well. And we see it all the time, especially with all these self-proclaimed activists, notable black figures who you see in relationships with people not black. Let's put it like that. People who they would describe in general as racist. Activists in the streets, colonize in the activists in the streets, colonize in the sheets. It's a walking joke. Like that's why the outrage that comes from Negroes over any given issue, when somebody so-called white gives them a genuine critique, it's why the outrage is just, it's an utter waste of time, among other things. Because at the end of the day, we know all these Negroes and POCs who claim to hate whitey, they want to fuck and kill whitey at the same time. And it's that kind of psychosis that the mainstream media appeals and panders to, from the entertainment industry to politics, where it really is dangerous. You know, but again, like the black men who don't praise him for being woke we're only trying to expose him because he was banging all the black women that the black dudes in Arkansas wanted. You know, reminds me of that DJ Pope situation. Same thing. Yeah, and again, clearly a white dude doesn't have to be a Brad Pitt to have these chicks up on him like that. All he has to do is be white. Which again makes it comical when these are the very same people that would call people like myself a sellout and a white worshiper. But yeah, I'm constantly exposing these pro-black Negroes for wanting white meat and wanting to be around white meat at any and every cost.